Are you ready for another meditation challenge?
And we're back with day 12 of the 30 Days of Love. Day 12, my friends. It's a beautiful Tuesday here on the east coast of Washington, D.C. And I am ready to meditate. I don't know about you. Waiting for a few friends to come on, and we'll get started. We'll get right into it. But first, today, what I'd like to do is go over some questions that I'm seeing here in the meditation and mindfulness group. So there's a few questions that have been posted recently. I'm just going to kind of go down the list and see what jumps out at me, because this is what's on the collective mind. Briefly, and then we'll get right into the meditation here. So let's see. Okay, that one. Oh, there's me. That's crazy. There's me being live in the group right now. Hey, me. So, let's see. Well, Jeremy Scott says, I'm new to meditation. Besides sitting quiet with eyes closed, concentrating on my breathing, I don't know what else to do. Can someone give me some more advice, please? Absolutely. This is a very common stage. When you first begin meditation, you're usually told, oh, just sit and focus on your breath. And that's a great start. What most people fail to know is the next step, right? So what to do after you're focusing on your breath and you're sitting there. As I state in many of my videos, meditation is a process. It's a transitional process of transformation, meaning there is a change that occurs. In the beginning of meditation, we use concentration in order to interrupt the thought patterns that we normally experience, the day-to-day routine thought patterns, right? Nothing esoteric about that. Our attention is just all wound up in thoughts and habits of mind, movements of mind. If you've noticed, the mind is constantly moving. I like to say that the mind is like water, and it's a good analogy because when water is perfectly still, and let's say it's a lake, all the debris settles, and the water becomes clear, and the water becomes still. And at that point, you're able to see into the depths of the mind. And so, for example, what to do next? Well, concentration is only the beginning. In this particular technique of the Heart Chakra, we're focusing on the Heart Chakra, just like you would say, focus on your breath. It's a pattern interrupt. It's a way to stabilize our attention. Our attention is constantly moving from whimsical fantasy to tendency to daydreaming, thinking, and it seems as if we don't have any control. And we begin to realize just how much control we have when we attempt to stabilize our mind on one point or one process, like the breath, or a mantra, or whatever it might be. We then realize just how out of control our attention has got, just how scattered our mind is. And most people give up at that point. They look at that and just say, well, I can never get beyond this chatter. Because at this point, a great amount of patience and faith must be introduced. A great amount of patience and faith must be exercised. So in this case, you're sitting, you're a beginner, you're focusing on your breath. Well, once you're able to isolate the breath, and the mind and the attention is not being pulled into habits and thoughts as strongly as it was at first, you're beginning to be entering into the stage of what I call stabilization. The stabilization of the attention is much like a pendulum swinging. As it swings back and forth, it finally finds its resting point in the center, in the stillness. It stops moving. And similarly, it takes about 5, 10, 15 minutes just to get to that point for most people. Initially, the body kind of undergoes this stillness, and then our thoughts begin to slow down. The pull to the thought tendencies, the pull to the distractions, the pull to the various modes and molds in which our attention has become accustomed to decreases, meaning all of those distractions to those attachments begin to decrease, because what we're doing is with this pattern interrupt, whether it's focusing on your breath or focusing on a heart chakra or whatever, you are basically with your willpower creating what I call the momentum of stillness, because you're attempting to hold your attention still at one point or one breathing process, or focusing on a mantra or whatever it might be. And as you're doing this, the mind is like an echo chamber. Whatever you put in front of it, it begins to repeat. It begins to echo it. It begins to reflect it. And if you continue to put something in front of the mind willfully, then that thing will begin to take center stage. And this is what I refer to as the stabilization, meaning the attention is drawn to that one thing, and it begins to settle in on that one thing. At that point, there is a number of things that you could do, of course. But if your goal is to transcend the attachments of mind, to transform into a more refined individual that can embody higher consciousness even amidst the waking activities of day-to-day life, then what I would recommend at that point is surrender. Surrender is a process of letting go. Usually I like to sum up meditation in basic understandings in just a few words. And to me, really the process of meditation practice is really just a practice of stillness and surrender. And that's really it. Because in the beginning we're becoming still with the concentration, and at that point we need to then surrender up or let go of all the old ways in which we hold ourselves. And you'll notice that you're holding yourself in a form. You'll notice at that point perhaps that you're holding yourself in your eyes. Your attention will be drawn back to its repetitious habits. And if you're constantly looking through your eyes, then guess what? Your attention, you'll kind of notice, is locked up there. And then you'll have to remember that we're feeling, we're not seeing. Because it's really, your attention is free to do anything it wants. It's free to go anywhere. It's free to travel multidimensionally. But the problem is because we are creatures in this body, we've become accustomed to and used to working within the body, within the senses, and therefore our attention is just accustomed to doing everything through the senses. So meditation is an attempt to train our attention to move away from the senses. So this is why I feel like focusing on the breath is really a beginner's practice, because focusing on the breath does not necessarily get you out of the sense world and into the higher dimensional planes in which real transformation takes place. These higher dimensional planes that I talk of, the dimensions that are accessible when we begin to learn how to feel energy, feel the energy emanating from the heart chakra, for example. these are real. These are real worlds, perhaps more real than this world. This world seems real because it's solid, it's concrete. And of course, because everybody agrees, most people at least in the world, that this is it. But we live in a very diluted world. We know this. This is why we seek meditation. But focusing on a chakra and feeling that energy, that bliss, is more real. Because that energy, that bliss, that energy of love, joy, happiness, eventually overwhelming ecstasy, is actually more real. There are planes and dimensions beyond this physical realm which actually are more consistent and more constant and don't change. These are known as the eternal planes, the planes of light. We live in a multidimensional world. Everything here in 3D, in the third dimension, the dimension of physicality of the material realm, of the solid, liquid, and gas states of matter and plasma. Everything here changes. Nothing lasts. It all changes. It cycles very rapidly. There's very rapid cycles, microcycles, and then there's macro cycles that change slower. But we know this. We intuitively know this because we sense that the seasons change. We see the sun, the stars, the moon. We see them all move. Our bodies change as we age. We see people come into the world. We see people leaving this world. We know this is a world of impermanence, so how real could it be? In fact, it's just a dream. Now, I believe it's very important to be grounded in your body, grounded in this dimension. And this is why I'm a big proponent of things like martial arts and working out, taking care of your body, being grounded, not being spaced out, and just being quote-unquote spiritual, but having an awareness of all dimensions of being. It's very important. So when we exercise our attention and hold it there, and we're able to feel the energy of the heart chakra, what we're doing is we are sharpening our concentration ability. Imagine that your mind is like a knife. Do you have a dull knife or do you have a sharp knife? What good is a dull knife? The dull knife doesn't do us much good. So in the beginning, the concentration exercise will help to sharpen the mind, will help to improve the memory, because what is memory except attention? You ever wake up and try to remember your dream? When we're dreaming, we're in another dimension. We're in the fourth dimension, the astral realm. The fourth dimension is very close to this dimension. It's the dimension of feeling, actually. Meaning we access the fourth dimension through emotions, through feelings. So these emotions in our energy body, the non-physical body, the subtle physical body, it seems non-physical. The subtle physical body is fourth dimensional. So it's very close to the third dimension. The subtle physical body is the body of the chakras, the nadis, the channels, the prana, the kundalini, the chi. All of these subtle energies that greatly affect the physical are in fact more real than the physical. It's like a top-down approach. When you can rise up to the next level, you're able to see the lower level. And I don't mean lower as in better or worse, but just lower as in frequency, vibrationally. When we're able to see from a bird's eye view, you can see more. You can understand the patterns better. And so as we move our attention into this realm, we're moving through the astral plane and actually into the planes of light. The planes of light are the causal dimensions. These are the dimensions of perfection, stillness, geometry. You know, what's the most perfect representation we can make in this 3D world? Geometrical structures. Now, while this may not be exactly perfect, you get the idea. A triangle. If drawn perfectly, equilaterally, is perfect. A cube is perfect. A sphere, a perfect sphere, it's as near to perfection as we can create in this world. So don't ever let anyone say that nothing's perfect. Sure, there's lots of examples of perfection in the world, and what we seek to do as meditators is become perfect. Well, I know that sounds like a controversial statement with this politically correct world. Oh, how can I be perfect amongst all of my imperfections? And all of my imperfections are perfect. Yeah. But what's going on in meditation is that we're bringing our attention to this point. And as we become more and more still, the refinement process then begins to take place. It's a process of becoming more and more subtle. Our awareness becomes less and less gross, less and less larger cycles. It's very much like a cycle. If you want to look at things in terms of a geometry, that there's a large circle, a large cycle. One good example would be mail. USPS Postal Service mail. Well, 100 years ago, it took weeks or whatever for a piece of mail to get from one side of the country to the other, right? Horseback or whatever, train. It took a long time to deliver one thing from one location to another. But today we have email, which is just about instant. So this is a perfect example of dimensionality. I know this is kind of going off track, but who cares? The point is instantaneous. Here it takes time. 1, 2, 3. Less time. 1, 2, 3. And then less, and then all of a sudden, bink! Instant manifestation at the point. So if you can get to that point, if you can become the still point of the moving worlds, you're at the center of all things. Stillness is perfection. Because awareness, consciousness, the root of who and what we really are is already perfect. What we seek to do is just unpeel this part of ourselves which feels imperfect, which feels scattered, which feels unevolved, and we seek to temper it and sharpen it. And as it becomes sharper, it's able to become more exact. And so this will help you greatly on this dimension. Because this dimension we're using our minds in a way that is dynamic. And so the better your concentration, the better your memory. And the ability to have a good memory is very important. But then, once we've mastered all that, what is the next step, Rob? We begin to surrender into the greater. We begin to let go of the old, let go of that gross pattern, and become more and more subtle. This is what I describe when I say that in order to fit through the doorway of change. And what is change? Well, death. The metaphorical death of the old self, the death of the ego death, whatever you want to call it, is the purpose for many people's reason why they meditate. Because they know that the ego, meaning the separate self, this idea of an entity, of an identity, this idea that we are the thoughts, the memories, etc. This is the ego. It doesn't necessarily mean egotism like I'm the greatest or I'm the best. It's simply the idea that I have a identity, a personality, which is simply an accumulated thought, reinforced, and therefore hardened, crystallized like this fist. How do you get this fist to say, hey, relax, ease up a little bit. And then finally the fist opens up and becomes the open hand. So what we're doing here is we're taking the fist, becoming the open hand. At that point, you want to be able to surrender the old self, because what will keep appearing at that point, once we've stabilized the concentration, whether it be on the chakra or whether it be on the breath, there'll be this larger, gross echo of a self. When we let that go, let that go, let that go, what we realize is there is a unified field of awareness, of consciousness that exists eternally, always present. You can call it awareness, you can call it consciousness, whatever you want to call it. It already exists. It's perfect. So unless we get rid of the thing, in this case, this separate self, ego, identity, unless we get rid of that, meaning we dissolve it by letting it go, by surrendering. Surrender is really just a letting go of control. Another good post I saw today was saying that she feels that she gets to a certain point in meditation and then she feels like pulled back to her familiar consciousness, to her familiar way of perceiving. And this is what I'm talking about. At that point where you feel like you're about to lose control, the only way through this, in my experience, in my opinion, is through practice. It's through experience, because let's face it, if you've never been in a fight, you're going to want to pull back, you're going to want to defend, you're going to want to run, get out of there, right? But once you've been in a fight, and let's face it, this is somewhat like a fight, isn't it, sometimes? It's a fight with our minds. If you've been there before, you become familiar with it. You're like, okay, I've been at this point. Let's go a little bit beyond. You take one step. And that one step in meditation is the ability to let go of control, let go of holding on to looking out of the eyes, let go of holding on to allowing that song to, or that mental chatter to cycle in the background. And we do this by jumping in, by diving in with our attention initially into the feeling. Let's say we're focusing on the heart chakra. When that feeling begins to emerge, we want to enter into the feeling, probe it, penetrate it. Both yin and yang are important to master yourself. We have to be both. You can't just be receptive. You also have to be penetrative. You have to be both, male and female. And this is why many of the pictures of the Buddhas are seen to be somewhat androgynous. Because androgyny, and I'm not talking about, your choice to become another sex. I'm talking about having a balanced energy. A balanced energy between, it's really all about balance. The symbol of yin and yang is balance between both polarities, male and female, empty and full. And we can go down the list, hot and cold, whatever it might be, active, passive. When you're able to balance those two, that's the still point. Still point is about balance. It's a juggling act, if you will. It's balancing act. So, I can go on all day, guys, as you know. Let's just get to the meditation, because I could probably sit here and rant and rave for hours. And if you like my ranting and raving, well, subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I rant and rave on there for hours upon hours in my videos. And all of these videos I put on YouTube immediately. Within a day or two, you'll see this video there. So all the meditation challenges, or at least the past year or so, I've put them on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that below. Go ahead and give me a subscribe and a like and a comment, if you will. I appreciate the support, my friends. So let's get to the meditation. I do love to talk about this stuff, though. I don't know, I could just sit here and talk about it all day. And so we got a couple questions here. Oh, thanks, Louisa. I love you. I appreciate that. A couple questions here come up. Majka, Prejack. I hope I'm saying that correctly. How do I help my pupils on guitar to stay motivated? I'm meditating every day to be more patient, day to day. How to teach them how to keep motivation? Good question. I guess this can be related to meditation because we all go through periods where we feel unmotivated, right? Well, this is why I do something like this. To motivate your students, my friend, show them the great guitar gods. Show them Jimi Hendrix. Show them Eric Clapton. Show them Satriani. Show them Steve Vai. Show them the greats. When I look for inspiration, for meditation or the spiritual path, I go to my teacher, Rama, Dr. Frederick Lenz. I go to the great gurus, Padmasambhava, the Buddha, the various spiritual books. And, there's many different great teachers on YouTube that will inspire you, or meditation masters that can inspire you. So I think it's really just about, showing them what is possible. And this is why I do this, for you guys. To show you what is possible. Perhaps you're new to meditation, perhaps you've meditated, perhaps you've got some experience. And what I advise you, regardless, is if you sit here and meditate with me, and you do it live, occasionally, once in a while, go back and rewatch the video just to watch me meditate. Now, I'm not saying that for any type of ego trip. I'm just saying this is how you learn to meditate, is by watching somebody who's experienced to do it. Watch carefully. What's going on in his mind? Is he really stilling that mind in there? And, this is how I learned to meditate. I studied with a meditation master, with an enlightened spiritual master. And in order to learn to meditate, traditionally, you would go to the guru, you'd go to the teacher, and you'd just sit with them. And because we're sensitive individuals as meditators, we pick up on what they're doing beyond just the senses. We feel. And this is why I'm trying to teach you how to feel, or to regain your ability, your perhaps latent, lost ability to feel. Because it's with this ability to feel, you're welcome, my friend, it's in this ability to feel things, to feel people, to feel situations, to feel it out, we're in touch with our intuition. And our intuition is a very important part of ourselves. I feel it's a good thing, again, to have that balance between intuition and logic. This is the right and left brain, the two hemispheres. We're like, I don't want to say we're bipolar people, but we're dualistic beings. We have a left and a right. And we've got the logic and the intuitive side. And without both being balanced with our approach to things, I think we're missing out on a great deal of information. Is if you're very logical, the icon for the logical person is who? Well, it's Dr. Spock, right, from Star Trek. Now, the logical person has all the answers, but they follow a line of logic. Logic is a hierarchical, step-by-step system of thinking through. Logic is applied to things like computer programming, how to best go from one step to the next, and then branch off into choices and what's logical. See what I'm saying? What makes the most sense in that tree? What makes the most sense in those branches? But intuition is completely different. Intuition can have the answer immediately, but it comes in a different form. It doesn't have to think. It knows already. And when we tap into this intuitive side, we can get great insight into a person, place, or thing, or an event. Is this something I should do? Is this something I shouldn't do? Should I go for it now? Oftentimes, we mistrust our intuition because we're brought up in a world that favors the logical side, doesn't it? We're brought up in a world that teaches us to rely on logic, and really in our educational systems doesn't even touch on something like intuition. In fact, it kind of downgrades or poo-poos our intuition, our intuitive ability. So when we become meditators, it's as if we're moving from logic into intuition. I talk about the transition in meditation and where to go from step one to finish off this talk that seems to go on forever. The logic is the holding of the attention at one point with the willpower. The logic is bringing it back. The logic is in the doing. And then we move through surrender, through letting go, into being. And being is our intuition. So we move from logic to intuition. We move from doing to non-doing, or from effort to effortless. And really that's the key. That's the next step. Becoming effortless. Because when we become effortless, we're still aware. In fact, we're more aware, because it's the effortless awareness that I talk about that is the meditative state. And in that effortless awareness, you'll still be aware because you are awareness. You've removed all the doings that's sort of crowding, that's obscuring, that's getting in the way. And then once that peels back, once you peel back the curtain, the effortless awareness is there. And at that point, you don't have to do anything. At that point, we trust the intuition and we have faith. At that point, we simply surrender to it. Now, of course, this takes practice, this takes patience, this takes faith, this takes trust, but it takes also experience. The more and more you do it, the more and more you kind of get to that edge where you feel, I'm about to lose it. Just go for it. Just dive right in. Jump off that cliff. Dive into the water. So, okay, my friends, that's enough talk. Meditation today, to silence, 25 minutes, insight timer, airplane mode. Let's begin with our breath. Y'all ready? I know we've lost about half the people to my chatter, but you know, it is what it is. They can watch the replay and skip ahead to the meditation if they want. So let's begin with our breath. Deep wave breathing 5 times. Ready? Exhale. Sit up nice and straight. Good posture. Posture is geometry. Geometry is frequency. Frequency is energy. Yes, it's all so logical. Two more. Come to know yourself. You're just taking a ride with me for now. Now switch the breathing to the nostril breathing, in and out of the nose, into the belly. Remember, life is temporary. Well, life is eternal, but the body is temporary. We'll settle down with the breath for a few more moments. Just focus on your breath. Forget about the day. Forget about yesterday. Forget about tomorrow. Only the moment is real. We're learning how to be in the moment. We're training how to be in the moment. As you breathe, release tension in the eyes. Hold yourself with a good posture, but with a neutral, balanced feeling. Beyond the body, there are realms and worlds of light, eternal dimensions, where the Buddhas hang out, where the enlightened masters are gathered around, chilling. Let's join them, shall we? Now begin by breathing in and out of the heart center. Cool breath in, cool breath out. You can place the fingertips at the heart center at this point, so your attention becomes accustomed to this point. The biggest piece of advice I can give you is to forget about yourself. Forget who you think you are. Forget how you do things. Allow yourself to be dissolved. Trust that you will re-emerge a newer, more refined, improved version of yourself. Breathing into the heart chakra. Breathing out. No need to visualize anything, just feel. As Bruce Lee said, don't think, feel. He was right. When you're ready, remove your hand, place your hand gently on your lap or on your thighs. And just keep a soft, gentle, but consistent focus on feeling the heart chakra. The key here is stillness. Become still in the body. The way we do this is by letting go. You can't hold still. You have to let go and allow the stillness. Just rest upon your bone structure. There's nowhere to go. No place to be. No need to move. It's all right here. When you begin to feel the energy emerge at the heart chakra, feel it, probe it, penetrate it, move into it, merge with it. In order to do this, our attention must become very subtle, very graceful, and just very light. Hold it there with the lightest touch. Now let go of all focus. Move from doing into being. Simply let go and be still. Surrender all old patterns into stillness. No focus. Okay. And we're coming back from our expanded meditative state back to our waking state. Good job, everyone. For those of you who have stuck with it, good job. As you can see, we're moving from form to formlessness. When we do the technique of concentration on the heart chakra, we're in the form. We're creating a form. Then when we move beyond the technique into no focus and just being, there's a formless state that we are expanding into. And this is why it's important to let go of the technique at a certain point and just be and rest as awareness. Now maintain this awareness throughout the day, this grace. And no matter what your experience was, know that you did a good job. You stuck with it. No matter how many times towards the end there you're thinking, gosh, how much time left is there? Or whatever was arising for you during the formless part, this is a good indicator of where we're at. This is a good indicator of the obstacles that arise in our minds that I discussed, these perceptual molds, forms that keep us sort of locked in a way of perceiving. So liberation, freedom, enlightenment is the ability to dissolve all of these forms, even the deepest ones, the deepest forms of separation, and they become whole again. They unite. There's no more separate attention. This attention dissolves into effortless awareness. Effortless awareness is like a flame, and we throw ourselves into the fire. Fire is the element of transformation. So we can have a balance between all the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire. It's very important. And in the center of the element, the four elements, is the yin and yang. So it comes from unity, consciousness, which is wholeness, oneness. Then there's the polarities and the extremes, yin and yang. And from all of that, all of creation is created. And so in meditation is sort of like a reverse engineering process where we come from the creation and into the unity, the wholeness. We're coming from separation into wholeness. That wholeness is eternal. It always exists. There's always the whole. But it's the mind that makes it seem separate. So there you go, my friends. Thank you. And I appreciate you. Again, this is the perfect time that we could all sit down on a good old Zoom video conference and really discuss this meditation, where we can see each other and we can go over the finer points. We can chat. We can discuss where your hang-ups are and how to move through them and move forward and transition into the higher meditation. This is why I'm bringing my coaching programs out right now, because I want to take you to the next level. I want to be able to interact with you, help you on a deeper level. So I do offer one-on-one coaching. It's $97 a month. I offer group coaching. It's only $37 a month. 4 Zoom calls a month, 1 Zoom call every week. It'll probably be on a weekend, make it easy for everyone's schedule. There'll be a private Facebook group for the group coaching. The group coaching is something everybody can do. It's affordable. And what this will give you is the motivation, the inspiration, and also the education and instruction to take you from where you are to the next level, and then to keep progressing. And you have my over 30 years of experience at your fingertips. And this can be very valuable for those that are serious about moving forward in meditation. So thank you, my friends. Again, if you have any questions about the coaching programs, you can go ahead and message me right here on Facebook. Yeah, it's only going to get better. Okay? Thank you guys. Have a great day. Take care.